Yeah, 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 yeah. La.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Bottle Rocket. I'm Elena here with Maeve and Jerry. How are you guys? How was your week?
My week,
Well,
my week was startling. I'm an Islander fan, and I could not believe that they would fire the guy, Patrick Roy at that time. But the team it was like they were in a tailspin, and as Lou Lamoriello has done in the past, you don't wait for the plane to crash if you could try to pull it out. And that's what they did. And, they got a game today. If they win this game today,
They have to win all 3 games to get into the playoffs, right?
they have to win the game today against Don.
Yeah,
Mhm.
that's a bit powerful.
I think there were rumors that Pete DeBoer was going to get taken off the market. So I think they acted in their own self-interest and knew that he was the best coach available that wasn't in the NHL already. So I was hoping the Canucks were going to scoop him up because he's an excellent coach. He'll turn that team around. Next year they'll be better. He's got a proven track record of improving teams. So
I was with him in Jersey. I did the coach's corner with him before every game. He impressed me in every which way. Just as a human being, he helped defeat the Rangers in that very, very nasty playoff when Devils beat them in overtime because he was going up against Tortorella. And Tortorella can be an intimidating foe. And they had a yelling match. And DeBoer very smartly decided about halfway through, why am I wasting my breath on this guy? I mean, Tortorella's still yapping. And meantime, DeBoer won the series. I was very impressed by this guy. So I'm happy.
I was hoping they'd hire him for the Leafs, but yeah, they don't really make quick decisions.
Well, the Leafs, you're right, Elena. The Leafs are like an organization in quicksand, and who knows what the heck they're going to do. I think. Speaking of the Leafs, I think Shanahan's going to wind up in Jersey, who obviously have to replace Fitzgerald. Fitz, it was an original Devil. I mean, I'll never forget after they drafted him, they brought him to Jersey. I think it was sometime in July, and I had to interview him. And the guy startled me. We did it outside the arena. He was wearing a green outfit. I guess it was around. No, maybe it was around. Well, he was very Irish, and he had a very Irish outfit on. He's a good man. Good man.
I watched the Leafs game and they were in New Jersey against the Islanders. And honestly, I was cheering for the Islanders. The Leafs don't really need the win right now. We want the pick. And the Islanders still have a shot at the playoffs, so I'm hoping they make it.
If they get in, it'll be a great story because about 3 days ago they were they were in the quicksand. They still are, but beating the Leafs at this particular time is not exactly a great event because of the Leafs situation. But the Islanders needed the win. They got the 2, and we'll see what happens. I mean, they dug themselves this hole, and like so many teams, they lose because of critical injuries. They didn't have their backup goalie, who's a very good goalie, Varlamov, the entire season. He was out the entire season. So they had to get another guy. They got rid of. He wasn't that good. They lost Palmieri. Palmieri is one of their best shooters, gone for the season right on. But that's the way it goes in hockey. We know that, and can't use it as an excuse, but just a reason.
Yep. And Colorado Avalanche officially clinched the President's Trophy. Do you think they're cursed now? They're not going to win the Stanley Cup?
Automatic. What do you think?
Yes.
The last team that actually broke the curse was Chicago Blackhawks, right? In 2013.
That's ancient history. That's ancient history. There are lot of good teams. That's what's so appetizing. I mean, you go up and down the line. You go from the East Coast to the West Coast. I have to tell you that I would never write off Dallas. They got a good organization there, and you got your old buddy Marner and
Vegas.
Vegas. So Boston's got a good team, and I'll tell you the two sleepers. The two sleepers. Well, you can't say that Buffalo's a sleeper anymore because they're in first place, which is an oddity. But I think Boston's going to be a very good team. You got Buffalo's a good team, and of course Carolina is a good team. Tampa Bay is a good team. It's going to be very interesting. Very interesting.
I'm predicting Colorado first round exit. I just they were home and cooled way too early, and the other teams chasing the playoff spot have been playing playoff hockey since January, and you can't just flip the switch. I'm looking at as the dark horses. I'm going Buffalo in the East and Anaheim in the West, but I'm still picking Vegas to go all the way.
Well, I would say for a real dark horse, I go with Pittsburgh. I tell you that this is so easy to figure. You don't need any logarithms or anything like that. You look at Pittsburgh at the end of the last two seasons. Same coach, and they strike out twice, even though they had Crosby, even though they got Walmart, even though they got Letang. And then they bring this guy nobody knows, who was an assistant for the Rangers. The Rangers stupidly let him go. Bring him in, and the guy they had who missed it 2 years in a row just missed it 3 years in a row. So how dumb were the Rangers, and how smart? Got to give Dubas credit. He brought this guy in, and he's a phenomenal job. And as we've said here before, what a tribute to Crosby and Malkin and these old guys. I was just taking a look at Punch Imlach's book, Hockey's a Battle, and he was explaining how he was tougher on the older players working out than the other guys because he wanted them to play longer. And Punch's theory was that by playing and practicing them longer, that they would be able to go far. And in '67, these old guys, Alan Stanley, Bobby Bourne, you go down to Marcel Pronovo, these guys won that fourth cup for Imlach. And he was right. That's when I don't know if you read Punch's book, but it's very strong because they made a deal for Andy Bathgate. They gave the Rangers a whole bunch of guys, and they were good guys for Bathgate. And Bathgate scored the cup-winning goal for them. That was the third straight. So what does Bathgate do the next season? He starts criticizing the guy who got him the cup. So in the book, Punch criticizes Bathgate. He says, "You're telling me how to win a Stanley Cup? I got these old guys, and they, Alan Stanley made it into the Hall of Fame. A couple of the other Pranov's in the Hall of Fame, and these guys won a cup. And Bathgate is, moping about he doesn't like the coach. And Punch said, well, who was right, me or him? And of course, let's face it, it was Punch who put together the great Buffalo team later with Perot and all those guys. That's the end of my soapbox.
That's amazing how you turned around Buffalo. I still can't believe it. Top of the Atlantic.
Yeah, after their horrible start, like it looked like it was deja vu all over again, and then they just came to life all of a sudden, like bam, and it just
14 years no playoffs, and now look at them.
But you got to remember that full credit to the players, okay? But they dumped the general manager who had been there for a long, long time, and replaced him. Now, whether that's a connection or not, but it did happen. And they went, they just A lot of good young guys and some good vets. Captain been around a long time. They might be it, it might be it. You never know. I'll tell you this way. If they ever win the cup this year, Niagara Falls will rise 40 feet for beer from Buffalo.
Well, me and Jerry are cheering for Buffalo now. We have no choice. Our teams are out, so
It's because they came into the NHL at the same time as the Canucks, so they're expansion brothers, and so it makes sense to root for them. And plus, they're a likable team. They got some great players: Erasmus Dahlin and Tage Thompson, and Alex Lyon, veteran goalie, and that Luukkonen, he looks good too. So they're solid up and down the lineup, and that it looks like they could go all the way. I think that they're a definite candidate for sure. I mean, you got to look at their winning record from after the first 14 games. Their winning percentage is probably better than Colorado's.
yep.
It's unreal. It's unreal. But the most amazing thing is the coach. This guy is the retread, Lindy Ruffin. I don't know what he's doing differently than he did 10 years ago. But boy, oh boy, another great story.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I say you don't become a bad coach overnight. I mean, if you're a good coach, you're a good coach. But sometimes things just go south on you, and like Craig Berube. I mean, he's obviously a great coach. Won a Stanley Cup with St. Louis a few years ago, and he took the Maple Leafs to the playoffs every year except this one. And did he just become a bad coach all of a sudden?
No, it's cleaner air in St. Louis.
Yeah. Yeah, well, in Toronto, I watched the Islanders Toronto game, and Toronto started a rookie goalie first game in the NHL, Akhtiamov, and I thought he looked good. He's got legs 8 feet long. It's like he's crazy with his legs. He can get across the crease in record time, and he made some.
Did you see the shot count? 44-16. Unbelievable. You've got a rookie goalie in his first NHL game. You have to protect him, and they didn't.
No, they just fed him to the wolves is what they did. But he stood tall. He held him in there. I mean, Islanders got the first 2 goals fairly quickly, but he held them off from that point. They really had to work for their opportunities.
Yep.
Where's he from?
Russia. He's a Russian goalie. I was like, finally, we got a Russian goalie. Great. See how that worked out.
Which goalie failed them this season?
Well, Stolarz, because of injuries. He got injured again. And
he can't. He's got the Demko curse. He can't stay healthy. He's every time he gets in, he doesn't last more than a couple of games. And this time, he didn't even last 10 minutes, 2.5 minutes. He was out, and so that's crazy.
He's definitely cursed.
Did you see that a few weeks ago in the warm-ups? Nylander hit his own goalie in the neck by accident. Just brutal. Stolarz really can't catch a break this season.
Anybody who shot that way at Billy Smith was in trouble.
Mm-hmm.
And when Mike Bossy did it, Smith chased him right out of the rink. He wouldn't take that. And well, you got a good example. Who wants to get hit in the neck in practice? Ridiculous.
Well, he explained that Nylander normally shoots to the same spot, but this time it didn't really work out. Just a miscalculation, total accident. But yeah, our goaltending's been really unlucky this season. It's great to see new faces in the playoffs, like Yuta Mamov clinched a spot, right? That's great for the league.
How about who are you going to suggest to be the GM of New Jersey now that my friend Fitz is out of a job? That's a nice team there to walk into. You got the 2 brothers, both healthy now. Of course, who knows what's going to happen? But their problem is they made a mistake when they dealt for Markstrom, or they got Markstrom. they thought that he was going to be terrific. He wasn't, hasn't been.
Yeah, he's been inconsistent, but like you said, I think Shanahan would be a great fit there. He's a former Devil and knows the organization inside and out, and but maybe they could get Lou Lamoriello to come back.
No, I doubt it. Well, Lewis, I'm pretty sure Lou is still under contract, because what they did was pretty smart. The main owner, Scott Malkin, works out of his office in London, Ontario, London, England, I'm sorry. And the other very active and very vigorous owner is John Ledecky. He's more of a people owner. So they needed a guy who knew the insides of all the governor's meetings, and Lou was perfect for that. So he's basically working for Scott Malkin, which is a good thing. It's a good thing. And by the way, the Islanders are moving their farm team to Canada. The Bridgeport team is going to be out of Hamilton. Hamilton pro team.
Interesting.
Oh, that's amazing, because Hamilton's had that arena empty for a long time, the Cops Coliseum. So
Yeah.
I don't know what the arena is like in Bridgeport, but it could be a step up for them.
Oh, Bridgeport was not the best idea. After about 7 or 8 years that they were there, that was not a good place to be. But it had the advantage of being relatively close to Long Island, blah, blah, blah. But they're apparently putting a lot of money to make Cops, or whatever Cops is, into ship shape. So, if you get tired of watching the Maple Leafs, like after the second game, go to Hamilton.
Yeah, I think they should have another team in the Toronto area. Somewhere like Richmond Hill, Hamilton. That would be ideal. It would cover those areas, and a lot of people would go there instead of coming downtown.
You know why it wouldn't work?
Why not?
Because the fact that you have a team in Toronto, the number one city in the NHL in terms of value, that means that that place is going to be filled if you had ants skating on the ice. So why would the owners of the Maple Leafs want some competition?
Yeah, that's the thing.
I mean, let's face it. Elaine, you got 32 teams in the league. How many more teams would you want?
5? 3 more?
Well, find a billionaire.
Yeah.
As long as there's the quality of players available, I think you can expand as far as you want. But eventually, you're going to dilute the talent pool, and the games become, not as good. And right now, the game's never been better. The speed at which they play is incredible, and just like I am always amazed at the speed at which they have to process information. I mean, the where to go with the puck mainly, because when you get the puck, very rarely do you have more than a second to do something with it. You got to decide whether to shoot, pass, somebody's open, somebody behind you, somebody coming, like you got to process like.
Yeah, it's kind of like chess. You're always thinking 2 steps ahead, reading the play before it actually happens. That's why they called Larionov the professor, or like Kucherov. Oh my God, he's so smart. Just an unbelievable player.
He is, and but he's never been, what's the word, publicized the way McDavid, for example. Yeah. Now he's been ahead of McDavid the last 2 years.
Yes.
You don't hear anything. I don't think much about him. This is going to be a big test for McDavid. Big test. Who are they going to wind up in the first round? Who's going to beat them in the first round? We got to get them beat, right? Who might beat them? Who might they play?
Dallas.
Good. That's a team that should beat them. Yeah, that would be a good one. That would be a good one.
All right, let's go, guys.
Great to have you.
Yeah, thank you guys. Yeah. How is everybody? Sounds like talking a little playoffs already, or something?
Yeah,
Yeah.
we're talking playoffs, but well, why don't you pick a good question for us for now? NHL now, a good NHL now question for us. And make sure it does not include Tavares. We don't want to talk about him.
Yeah, the old Islander runaway. Yeah, let's see.
Who's your favorite team?
Yeah, so that I was going to bring that up. So it's a sore subject, the Rangers. So I'm like,
Ooh.
checked out. It's just the way the last couple seasons have been. Like, man, I don't know. I think I can get behind the team like not being that great and trying their best. You know what I mean? I've been following them like 20 years, whatever. But I feel like they all quit over these last couple of years. I think they got mad at management. They didn't like the way Kreider was handled, Trouba, etc. But anyway, so I think that's been a little bit of a disaster. But I could do a softball. How about, I don't know, who do you guys like for the cup right now? Who's your favorite?
Colorado is mine.
Yeah.
But they kind of screwed. They won a President's Trophy, so now they're cursed. So they're
Right.
out.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the President's Trophy cursed. Yeah, probably not.
Yeah, well, I picked Vegas at the beginning of the year, and I'm sticking with it. But I really like Buffalo in the East. I think they've got the goods to go a long way, if not all the way.
Right. Yeah. You said Vegas.
Yep.
I'm rooting for the all-time underdog, and that's Pittsburgh, because Pittsburgh's coach should be the Rangers coach. He was in the Rangers organization, and they overlooked him, and they take a guy who's already lost 2 straight years, missed the playoffs with Crosby and Malkin. And no person, don't tell me that he won the gold medal. He was carried with that team. But the point is, you gotta like a team that Penguins were picked by the geniuses at the Hockey News. They picked the standings at the beginning of the season, and the Penguins were picked in 8th place. You can't get lower than 8th place. And you got to give the GM credit. He got this guy. He's done a wonderful job. But looking at the best teams, I have to believe that sooner or later, Rod Brind'Amour is going to win another cup, and they got a hell of a team. They are good.
They always do. They're interesting, though.
What about you, Dylan? What do you think?
Oh, I was just going to say, I wonder about the theory with Carolina, though, that they almost played too hard and burned themselves out over the year or something, because they're always good. They play such a two-way in-your-face game, but then they just seem to lose in like the second round. I don't know. Maybe they could use a little more star power, but yeah, we'll see, though. They could be right in there. I kind of like Minnesota.
I don't have faith in their goaltending, and I'm, speaking as a former goalie, and Freddie Anderson to me has never been a true number one. He's not a star goalie. He's not not a player that a team can ride on. He's not going to steal a series for you. And their backup Bussy is unproven. Kochetkov is gone for the season. So I really have no faith in their goaltending. And if you don't have goaltending, you're going nowhere. So I say it's a second round defeat as far as I'm concerned. That's another thing. The system we have is dumb. When you think about it, because like after the first round, four cup contending teams are going to be gone, it should be 1 against 8, 2 against 7 in both conferences, or you can even make it league wide, 1 against 16, 2 against 15, and so forth. That way you eliminate the lesser teams, and you're not eliminating cup contending teams in the first round. I think it's dumb.
I agree. I hate that. We got to do the old 1 versus 8, because it also we end up with the same teams. Like LA has played Edmonton like 7 times in a row now in the playoffs, or exaggerated, but it seems like every year it's just them in the first rounds. Anyway, looks like my dad's in here. Here he is.
Oh, hello everyone. I don't know if you can hear me.
So we have
I gotta do a little introduction, because these guys know that I saw the Coast Guard cutters play. So the war starts, And good hockey players are inducted in the Royal Canadian Air Force, into the Canadian Army, and in America, in the Navy, and Air Force. Ted Williams, great ball player, was in the Air Force. But out of nowhere, seemingly, the Coast Guard had a team. The Coast Guard team was based in Baltimore. They were playing in the arena, that Collins Ice Arena, where the pro team had played. They had to disband because of the war. And in 42, I was 10 years old. I used to go to the games at Madison Square Garden, the Eastern League games, the Rover games. Met League game at 1:30, 3:30, the Eastern League games. They were great. And at 42, season starts. What team shows up but the Star-Spangled Skaters? These are guys who are NHL guys. They played in the American Association. And to this day, I can tell you it was the best hockey I ever saw in my life. And to watch these guys, it was amazing because there was something so special, not just the uniform, not just the fact that they brought their 30-piece band down up from Baltimore, not just because they had NHL stars. They had, the captain was Art Coulter, who captained the Rangers to the Cup in 1940. And he was also the top penalty guy in the league. So we saw the toughest kind of players and the best kind of players. And when they came into the Garden, it was like a festival. And you didn't know, whether they beat the crap out of the Rovers or what. But it was something you had to see. And I became infatuated with them. And I went to every single game, of course, when they came to the Garden. Bob Dill was later became a Ranger defenseman. Bob Dill played a season with them, but it was guys like Johnny Mariucci, who went on to be captain of the Blackhawks, and Manny Cutlow, very, very tough, and a couple of other guys, Coulter. Whenever they came in, there were going to be fights. And these were the kind of fights that the fans loved. And the guy who covered the Rovers at that time, Dick Young, became one of the great sports writers of history. He always wanted to be the guy assigned to the Cutters. And I have in my scrapbook 2 stories that he wrote separately about 2 or 3 months apart. But the theme was the same. If the Madison Square Garden fight promoter, Max Jacobs, would want to schedule another fight night at the Garden, he should do it Wednesdays and bring the Cutters down and slug it out. One more thing. They had so many good players at the base in Baltimore, so many good hockey players, that they actually divided the roster in half. Cutters were one, and they had a separate team, the Clippers, and they'd often play their own, they play their own games, the Cutters against the Clippers, and they sell tickets, and people loved to watch them because it was just great slam bang hockey. And this is a stupid admission, but when the second season began, which was 43-44, we saw the handwriting on the wall, and that this was going to be the end because these guys have to go overseas. So in the back of my mind, I was half praying that World War II wouldn't end so I could see another year of Coast Guard hockey. That's my story. I loved it.
Nice. We can give a quick introduction. I don't know if you want to go first, Dad.
Yeah. So hi, I am Ron Paul Buehler. I am the grandson of Cliff McLean, who started the Cutter team, and recently retired. So I thought I'd dig into more details on the team, and that's how we got in contact with Stan. And because I've always wanted to know more about the team and the players. And so, yeah, so I'm 2 generations away from Cliff, but at the same time, I'm very interested in hockey. I grew up as a Navy brat, so we were never around ice. My dad was in the Philippines and Hawaii and things like that. So I never got.
It was big in Hawaii, no?
Yeah, and so when I when I moved to Maryland, I got interested in hockey, and I said, my kids are going to play hockey, and so I have 3 boys who all play hockey, and Dylan, of course, is one of them, and my middle son actually played college hockey, and that's as far as he got. But anyway, so I'm doing a little research, and it's great to talk about the Cutters, and finding for more information about them. And Stan is the man. He's been there. It's hard to believe he actually went to the game, and I'm glad we're able to talk to him.
So let's start from the beginning. What's your earliest memory of the Cutters, and how did you first hear about them?
I think I was probably 15 years old at the time, and I was in Hawaii, and my grandfather came out to visit. I hadn't seen him since I was 2, and he came out to visit our family, and we just started chatting, and he said, I used to play hockey, and in '43 we had a great hockey team. I'm like, oh, that's interesting. Can we go to the beach now? And I'm like, I wasn't too interested into it, but I just, you're still young, and your focus is somewhere else. But later on, as I got into my early 20s, I was able to come back to what they call the mainland, which is here, the continental United States, and go visit him in his home in northern Michigan. He grew up in Sault Ste. Marie, Michigan, and played hockey as a kid there. And so I was able to, walk into his office and see some amazing things from the Coast Guard games, some pamphlets and some trophies and some, his jerseys. And I'm like, wow, this was something really big. I had no idea how big this thing was when I was that age. And so, we'd sit down and talk a little bit about the games. And I was just amazed that this amazing man who was able to serve his country in the Coast Guard and put this amazing hockey team together. So, yeah, very, very, very amazed.
There's also the '99 event, right? I don't know if you want to maybe quickly touch on that, the big reunion event. I was only 2 years old, so I don't really remember it. But was I there? I forget. Was I brought?
Yeah, you were too.
Definitely, I was there. Don't remember.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So the U.S. Coast Guard and got together with the U.S. Naval Academy team in Maryland in 1999 and had a reunion game. They used the current players that were on the Coast Guard Academy team and the Naval Academy team, but they wore the replica jerseys from the '43 Coast Guard team, and so they invited the surviving members of that team to come out to Baltimore and Annapolis and come watch the game. And my grandfather, who was really old at that time, mid-90s, he actually walked out and dropped the puck in the center to start the game off. And it was just an incredible thing to see that team sort of reunion. A few of the players were there from, Art Coulter there. Ooh, I hear a pup. I don't know if Manny Kotla was there, but there were several players, about a handful, that were there to watch the whole thing and enjoying all the festivities. So that was quite the event, and the Coast Guard won that game, so that was even better.
The team had a reputation of being tough. How tough were they really? Any stories that stand out?
Well, let me tell you about Manny Kotla, because he was one of these guys who would have been a star in the 32 team NHL now. He was a Jewish guy from Minnesota. He was from the Mariucci group. Mariucci was a great football player at Minnesota, great football player. And this was a defense you didn't want to go near. If Coulter didn't beat the crap out of you, then Kotla did. What Manny did was something that happened a lot in those days. And that is, there was no glass or anything protecting the fan. So if you're a fan sitting along the ice in the first row, you could whack a player over the head if you had the guts to do that, or they would do it. And Manny was, of all the hockey players in pro hockey that I've known, Manny had more fights with fans than anybody else. Even later when he wound up playing in Oakland. But the other thing about him was that, no other team had a marching band. Maple Leafs don't bring a band to New York, and so they had this 30-piece band, and all these guys were great musicians. That's why they were in the band, and one of them was Benny Goodman's brother, who was Irv Goodman, who was another great musician. So whenever the Cutters scored, this was the great event. They swing into Semper Paratus, which is the Coast Guard marching song, and it's a beautiful march. So you had that, and of course, after the Rover games were in the afternoon, so these guys didn't have to go back to Baltimore. And Bob Dill's son told me that they went to, I think they went to the Copacabana nightclub, one of the big nightclubs, and I think Ella Fitzgerald was a great singer who was there, and Bob Dill went up and had a good voice. She let him sing duets with her before they had to go back to work and do their service. And there was a lot of interesting stories. My buddy was Mike Nardello. I'm from Brooklyn. Mike was from Brooklyn, and Mike started playing roller hockey in the streets. And then he graduated to a Catholic high school that in those days we had a high school hockey league, ice hockey league. And Nardello was very good, very, very good. And he graduated from there to playing for the Rovers. And this is what happened. It was Sunday afternoon, and I think it was December 1942. He's playing for the Rovers. He was a Ranger farmhand for the Rovers on a Sunday afternoon, and the next week he's playing at the Garden against the Rovers because he joined the Coast Guard. So he went from the Rovers on one Sunday to the Coast Guard team on the others. He told me a lot of so there are a few guys who really opened up. A lot of these guys from Minnesota seem to be the best. They had Frankie Brimsick, the Hall of Fame Bruin goalie, but he did not come in until the second season. The two goalies they had were terrific, Muzz Murray and Hub Nelson. Hub Nelson was known as the greatest hockey goalie who never made it to the NHL. He was strictly in the top minor league, and I watched him. I like Muzz Murray better. Muzz Murray was my idol goalie, not the other two, but that's the way it is when you're a kid. What do you know? You take who you like.
You got his picture on your wall, right? See the one?
That's right. I have. Unfortunately, it's not in this particular part of the house, and I can't rip it off. But I have a picture of Nardello. I have two pictures of Muzz Murray, oddly enough, and I think one or two other guys. And it's funny how I look back at. I started watching NHL hockey in '42, and I had my favorite teams like the Maple Leafs. But for some reason, there was something about very special about the Cutters. And,
It wasn't Bob Dill a Golden Gloves champ as well?
yeah, Bob Dill was. He was a Golden Glover in St. Paul. He was from St. Paul. Yeah. And he was discharged for medical reasons after the 42-43 season, and he signed on with the Rangers. And he made the big mistake of getting into a fight with Rocket Richard, and the Rocket KO'd him. But in those days, when you got a 5-minute major, you sat next to each other in the penalty box. There was only one bench, and you sat next. So Rocket and Dill go into the penalty box, and Dill figured he might as well get even with the Rocket, so he started another fight. And guess what? He was KO'd twice by the Rocket in one period. Too many guys make that statement. But Bob is a great guy. I was in touch with him for a long, long time. And I'm in touch with his son, Junior.
Yeah, I
Good
think
bunch.
that whole scene was reenacted in this 2005 movie called Rocket that was a French-Canadian movie. Do you know about that?
No.
Yeah, I didn't know about this either.
There is a French-Canadian movie called The Rocket, and it's about Rocket, Shard, and in that whole scene with Bob Dill and Rocket are it's in the movie, but it's all in French and English subtitles.
Did you say Sean Avery played Bob Dill?
He did.
That's right. That's right. Avery did.
Yeah.
That's great. Yeah, I mean, I know Sean Avery's gotten into acting, especially like post-career, but I didn't realize he was in a movie then, and that kind of makes sense, though. Kind of a agitator, tough as nails guys. I was a big Sean Avery fan, like in the.
I'm in touch with him.
Rangers.
Yeah, he's moved into acting now. He's been in a few films, even had a small role in Oppenheimer. We had him on the show a few months back. He's got another movie coming out this summer, Odyssey.
There was the next Christopher Nolan movie.
Yeah.
Apparently, Christopher Nolan loves him, so he's going to probably appear in all his movies. But he told us about a scene he was in with Matt Damon and Cillian Murphy. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing it. Yeah, he's doing really well with his acting career. I'd like to go back to the Cutters here because I'm wondering what was the gestation of this team. I mean, that they seem to appear out of nowhere, and the research that I did, they just kind of are there all of a sudden. I know World War II was on, and it was 1942, so somebody had to have the idea of starting this team. Where did that come from, and where did all the NHL players come from?
So can I jump in there, Stan? So according to my grandfather, Cliff McLean, he was out in the Philippines at the time, and he got shipped over to Curtis Bay, Baltimore at the start of the war. And he heard about the Baltimore team, which I believe was either the Blades or the Orioles, correct me?
Orioles.
Yeah, it's amazing. They have a baseball and hockey team. But he heard that they were folding in the Eastern Hockey League because of everybody had joined the war, and so he, being a hockey player, and he was the personnel officer at the U.S. Coast Guard base. His responsibility was also to recruit and to maintain current personnel for the war effort. So he had heard this on the radio. Driving, and came up with the brainchild to go ahead and see if he could contact was it Tom Lockhart, who was in charge?
Tom Lockhart ran the Rovers, and he ran what's now USA Hockey. And he was the guy to go to move this idea into fruition.
Right. So my grandfather called him and said, hey, we can put a team together if you allow us to play in the East Coast Hockey League to replace the Baltimore team. And Tom said, sure, let's do it. And so my grandfather's, being from Northern Michigan and someone in the hockey circles there, knew several players, including Mariucci and Coulter and Kotlow, and just started writing letters. And all of a sudden he got this massive response back. So I think in a nutshell, that's what happened.
Eddie Olson, who was a great American League player, and another guy was Joe Kusler. I was so crazy about this team, and my father realized it, and I think Dad went to at least one of the games with me. So he actually built me out of wood something like the soccer game that they have at all the bars. I forget what they call it. But this game was so well thought out that I could play with my left hand against my right hand. And I was so crazy about the Cutters that I made them one of the team of the game. And I had a player's name. I had Joe Kusler at center. I had a guy from the Bruins, Eddie Barry, And I had my little scorebook, and amazingly, the Cutters never lost.
Nice.
Yeah, we need a bubble. I was going to put a bubble hockey game together, and put the Cutters versus somebody. But that sounds like
Fun.
fun.
Cutters Red Wings, maybe.
Yeah, Joe Kukler, is that how you say his name, or is it? Yeah, he was actually the leading scorer on the leading line of the Cutters. Is that correct?
Oh yeah, he was great. Joe was one of them. Eddie Barry, who was a Bruin and wound up with the Bruins after the war. Bob Gilray. He was a wonderful storyteller. He was a very good player. So they had, like I said before, they had so many players. You had two teams, the Cutters and the Clippers, and one of the guys gave me a whole bunch of clippings from the Baltimore Sun, and when they played the Cutter Clipper games, they sold out the Collins Arena. They were just these guys were real good hockey players. And somebody came up with the idea, well, how good would they be if they played the Stanley Cup champions? So the Stanley Cup champions happened to be the Detroit Red Wings, and they made this into a charity game for USO or whatever, for the war effort. And the Cutters kept them even through two periods. And then in the third period, the Red Wings went ahead and won the game. The point is that, you got to playing against an NHL Stanley Cup champion team that's in shape, playing hockey all the time and training and practices against a team of servicemen who have to do their jobs during the day and then play. So it was pretty good that they hung in there. But that was the only one against an NHL team. I know they went up to Toronto and they played a Canadian team with NHLers, which was the HMCS York, which was based out of Toronto, or the team was out of Toronto. But listen, they won the championship the first season, and ex-mayor Jimmy Walker presented the Walker Cup to them at Center Ice. I have big pictures of that. And then, the next year was when Brimsick came in, and I wasn't that impressed with him, but what the heck, guys, in the service, you're not going to be the same as you were at a regular NHL game. But it was toward the end of that 43-44 season, you started to see fewer and fewer guys on their roster, and they were, like my buddy Mike Nardello went out to the South Pacific, so that's it.
Do you have a favorite Cutters moment or story that really sticks with you?
Me?
Yeah.
Yes. In fact, I know there's film of this. Mariucci was arguably the 1, 2, 3 best player on the Cutters, and he was also very colorful. He was a defenseman, but in this particular game at Madison Square Garden, he broke out. In those days, defensemen didn't do rushing the way Bobby Orr did and the guys are now. But Mariucci was a great skater. So in this particular episode, he carried the puck out of his own zone and he broke free and he went in on a breakaway against the Rover goalie. The Rover goalie's name was Jack McGill. The great thing about Jack McGill, he was the only goalie I ever saw in the history of hockey watching a game that he wore a towel like this, one in goal. And whoever filmed the breakaway filmed him from sort of Mariucci starting it, and at center ice was seeing Mariucci's back as he went in on goal. And of course, I was rooting for the Coast Guard. and he beat Jack McGill and Jack McGill's towel cleanly. And somebody close to the team gave me the film, but it was not in perfect sync, so I never actually got it as it was. One of you guys showed it to me, and it's a great memory. One of your favorite players gets a breakaway and he beats the goalie with a towel around his neck. That's my favorite Cutters episode.
The towel's funny. Anybody ever say why that was? Was that just like the original neck guard or something, or was maybe he had it cold to like keep himself from getting too hot?
I think it was either a good luck thing or something that he seemed to like. He was a good goalie. If it weren't for the war, he probably would have been on a top Ranger farm team. But in those days, a lot of teams, the door was revolving because guys kept getting called up and they had to be replaced. And when the Rangers opened their training camp in 1942 for the 42-43 season, they didn't have a single goalie on the team.
Dang, it could have been a good chance for a lot of beer leaguers at the time throw their hat in the ring.
They did bring a guy up, and he wound up being one of the worst goalies in history. And he had the best nickname of any worst goalie in history. His name was Steve Baczynski, the puck goes Inski.
That's
And
amazing.
it did.
That's amazing. Wow.
So, as part of my research, I was watching a video on YouTube. It was the Cutters against the New York Rovers. There's no sound, but there's only raw footage. But the thing that struck me the most was their sweaters, their jerseys. I thought they were right up there with Blackhawks and Red Wings, which I think are the two best jerseys in the world. And did any of those original jerseys survive, or are there? Do you know of any that are in the collection somewhere?
Source subject.
Mark Nardello, after the war, moved to Clinton, New York, and he played for the Clinton Comets. And then he came to New Jersey, where he was working and living, and he was a New Jersey Devils penalty timekeeper. And we became good friends, and I started telling him what I knew about the Cutters, and of course he gave me a lot of great stuff. And he gifted me on my birthday with his Cutters jersey. And
wow,
it's a beauty.
It is a beauty.
Awesome. Star-spangled skaters.
Look at that.
That's awesome.
What number?
I believe the original jerseys were made by Jerry Cosby, who was had that great hockey store in the Garden. And because you know what? They never were called jerseys, by the way. They were called sweaters.
Sweaters, right?
That's because they were sweaters.
Yeah.
I think my grandfather donated his jerseys to the U.S. Coast Guard Academy. So I'm not sure, but that jersey I showed you is a replica. I had a replica made. So,
is there maybe one in the U.S. Hockey Hall of Fame or something?
Probably, yeah, that's what I was gonna say.
I'm not sure, but
Good
should be. Yeah.
Go check it out.
The Hockey Hall of Fame is in Minnesota. Am I right? Yeah, it's up in Minnesota, and it would not be surprising if one of these Minnesota guys, Kotlau or one of these guys might have donated. They not made it much of it, but that would be a natural sequence.
Yeah, a good little adventure for us, and we'll go check it out. So we can hunt one down. I kind of want a Gozinski jersey now, though. Can I get one of those?
He only lasted a very short time, and if I told you how he got dumped, you wouldn't believe this. So he was the Ranger goalie because they had no other goalies. started the 42-43 season, and he was also supposed to be the Rovers practice goalie. And in the Garden, they had this arena called Iceland on the top floor, and that's where the Rangers are practicing. So the Rangers are having a practice, and Brzezinski isn't there. And Frank Boucher, the coach, said, where the hell's Steve? And he says, he's over there. And he was in it was a little cafeteria at the rink, and he was sitting there writing a letter. And Frank says, aren't you going to practice with us? He says, yes, I will, Mrs. Boucher, but I'm writing a letter to my mother now, and let me finish this. And Frank says, I'll save you a lot of time. And he got him a ticket to go back to North Battleford, Saskatchewan. He didn't have to write to his mother. He could now talk to her. And that was how he ended his career.
So if the Cutters existed today, how do you think that fit into the modern hockey world? Which team would you compare them to?
Flyers, Broad Street Bullies.
There you go. Probably like 70s Flyers then, right? To be a little more specific.
Yeah. 74, 75 Flyers, second cup in a row. That was there are certain teams over the years where they're beloved for being tough. And the Flyers were in between, I would say. And the Cutters, how could you not love the Cutters? I think I told you that Dick Young of the Daily News gave him a nickname. He called them Hooligans Navy. That was his nickname for them, Hooligans Navy. And he said, Max Jacobs was a fight promoter at the Old Garden. He said, Jacobs should bring them in on Wednesdays. He put on a better show than the regular fighters on Friday night. But, when you know that this team is going to stop existing after the second year, it's very, very sad. It's very sad. Of course, they didn't come in that much because they had played the Philadelphia team, was the Falcons, Boston Olympics, and I think the Washington Lions were the other ones. But
yeah, were there any like service teams that were anywhere close to this just throughout history, like notable, whether it's maybe Canadian or American or anywhere in the world? Like, was there really anything like the Cutters?
Yes. When the war started, Lester Patrick thought that there would be a cessation of pro hockey in Canada and the United States. And Lester Patrick, who ran the Rangers, believed him, and it was a big mistake because hockey continued. But when they made the announcement, a few of the Rangers who were on the cup-winning team and the team in 42, where they finished first, Sugar Jim Henry, they all enlisted in the Canadian version, which was called the Ottawa Commandos. And they played a number of the service teams in Canada, because in Canada they had service hockey from British Columbia right up to the Maritimes. But the Commandos, they played for the Allen Cup, which was the Stanley Cup of senior hockey in Canada. And the Commandos were winners because they had a lot of good players. And of course, the other Ranger goalie who became the Ranger goalie was Charlie Rayner, and he was playing for a service team in British Columbia. And that's where, as far as we know, it was the only time a goalie skated the length of the ice and scored a goal. He was playing in British Columbia, and there was a big melee behind his goal, and the puck came shooting out. And as the puck came shooting out, Rayner saw that there was nobody between the puck and the goalie on the other side. And it was a good goalie, too. And Charlie was a great skater. And he said, well, the hell with this. And he went in and scored the goal.
That's awesome. Do you know actually when they put the rule in, like the red line rule? Because I believe that's the official rule now. A goalie cannot pass.
Yeah.
And it was like Patrick Waugh video. He spinorama's the guy. I think at MSG. But anyway, do you have any idea when that rule got put in?
What was that?
Like when they put in that, basically the rule that a goalie can't pass the red line.
Something like around 20 years ago. They put in stupid rules curbing goalies. Marty Brodeur is one of the great skating, passing goalies of all time, and the Devils were winning all their games. So what they did is they put the cockamamie design behind the net where you can't.
The trapezoid.
Yeah, dopey trapezoid. That's what they.
Trapezoid.
You know, when the Canadians won 5 straight Stanley Cups, they were so good, and the other teams were so jealous. So they put in a rule that you can only score 1 goal on a power play. Canadians were so good they scored 2 goals and 3 goals, but the other team said no, that's not good for us, so they did it. But the trapezoid was expressly designed to curb Marty Brodeur.
Yeah, makes sense. I've heard people even.
So he only won 3 cups.
Yeah, exactly. I've heard people suggest maybe they should have even done the reverse of the trapezoid, like the goalie can play in the corners, but not right behind the net. If you're really trying to limit goalie play, you know, because usually they stop it right behind the net. But I don't know. I think the whole thing's kind of silly. I don't know if they really need it.
I don't understand why they would limit a player's ability like that. Like, if you got a good puck playing goalie, I mean, that's just part of the game. It's just why take it away from one team, one goalie who's really good at it. And so, you know, that if I was commissioner for a day, that would be the first rule I changed. Get rid of that stupid trapezoid. You were talking about teams from Canadian. Well, there was a Canadian Air Force base in Moose Jaw when I was playing in Saskatchewan, and we got scheduled to play an exhibition game against them. And apparently they were ranked in the top 5 in Canada. And so we were prepared for a really tough game, and they came down and they told us that they had decided that none of the pilots could play, and all the pilots were their best players. So they sent down basically a bunch of beer leaguers to play a senior team, and we just crushed them. We were beating them so bad that our fans started cheering for them. So, I was watching, like I say, I'm fascinated. I stumbled upon this video of the Cutters playing the New York Rovers, and it was just an exhibition game. You can tell because there's not much hitting, and but the stands are full. Like, whenever they and the marching band was there that you talk about, Stan, the band was there. And
I saw
they
that.
show them playing, and you can see the stands are packed. So this team must have been extremely popular.
Well, they were, because when they did play, all the daily papers, and we had 7 newspapers then. Every paper had a hockey guy there covering the game, because they cover the game in the afternoon and then the Ranger game at night, so it make it very easy. But the point is, you're talking about the popularity. Those games were sold out, so and it was cheap. That's the beauty part. Very, you know, my father would take me. It was a $50 for him and $25 for me. And how can you beat something like that? And great entertainment. And it was a doubleheader. It was a doubleheader also. Not them. It was a Met League game, and then the Coast Guard and the Rovers.
Well, another point I'd like to make is that these players that were playing in the NHL, I mean, they didn't have to volunteer. I mean, they were past the draft age, and I think Brimsek was 27 in the prime of his career. I mean, think of today's NHL. How many players would volunteer, you know, if war broke out? And you know, like, I don't think very many of them would. And the unselfishness of the populace back then, it just that amazes me. I mean, I'm not sure I would have volunteered, you know, like, and so these guys to give up their NHL career in the prime of it, you know, and to give up that to go serve your country, I think is admirable, to say the least.
Patriotism was different then. It was we looked upon every serviceman with a great deal of pride. We honored them, and but, like, you know, it's 1942, 43. We're talking about. It's just a different world.
I'm sure the
our culture
selling cars. They were making tanks.
Our culture wanted his U.S. citizenship, I think, and that's one of the reasons he did show up. Do you remember that, Stan?
Yes. Art had dual citizenship. He was from originally from Winnipeg. He was a remarkable guy. That 1940 Stanley Cup winning Ranger team was one hell of a team in every which way. Very, very colorful. Great goaltending. Davy Kerr was the goalie, and what a defense! Buzz Patrick, and you had Art Coulter, and you had Babe Pratt. It was deservedly one of the great teams, and this was cup number 3 for the Rangers. Number 3.
So good they had to wait till '94 for the next one, right?
Well, Ranger fans were very patient.
Yep, the old 1940 chance.
I started looking at some of the military careers of the Cutters players, and a number of them were shipped out on troop transports across the Atlantic in Coast Guard capacity to guard the troops and help with the, that whole effort of getting troops across the Atlantic. And as far as I know, I can't find any of them that died in service. So they were all successful in their Coast Guard missions. And then they would come back and either retire from hockey or continue on and be coaches and things like that.
Coulter retired. He never played again. But a very interesting sideline. There was one other team, and they were called the U.S. Naval Armed Guard Gunners. They were stationed in Brooklyn, and the Armed Guard was part of the U.S. Navy, because every one of those freighters that was crossing the Atlantic had to have one big gun, and the big gun could not be manned by a maritime. It had to be a Navy guy. And they had a team in the Met League. I have a program in my scrapbook about them. I used to go there because we see doubleheader, and they only played one season, and then they were gone. But that was a hazardous job, very hazardous job. One of the guys who was in the Armed Guard was he was on the Blackhawks, and he was on a ship that got torpedoed in the Atlantic, and he was a goalie. He was a goalie with the Blackhawks, and the ship got torpedoed, and they had big lifeboats. Then they could hold 20 sailors, and they're in the Atlantic. Nobody's rescuing them, and they were starting to fade from starvation. And the goalie, I can't think of his name right now, but I will. He came up with this idea. They had this little anchor, and they had at one end of the big lifeboat, and he put the anchor in, and he caught a dolphin. And they were able to skin the dolphin, and they had these little sterno heaters. So they were actually saving their lives eating dolphin a la Atlantic. They were floating. I think it was about 35 days without being rescued. Survived when the boat came ashore on a beach in Brazil, and that was it. That was it.
Wow. So, in your book, Tales of Brooklyn, Elena, can you show them Stan's book? I think you mentioned that there's guys from your neighborhood in Brooklyn who went off to war and never came back, right?
Oh yeah. Well, you knew it if you walked down Vernon Avenue, which was my street for going to school and playing punchball. If Mom had his son in service, there was a star, and the Gold Star was the one who they lost their. We had a lot of guys. Let's face it, we were in the war from December 41 until August 45, and so that was a lot.
Yeah, if you guys haven't read Stan's book, Tales of Brooklyn, do yourself a favor. My favorite story, and not just my favorite Stan Fischler story, but my favorite story of all time is how he got his mom arrested. So,
Nice. All right. Yep. Definitely.
You didn't finish. Arrested by the New York State Police.
Uh-oh.
So go buy the book. It's very cheap. You can get it from Amazon.
Well, I want a signed copy. That's what I want.
Well, you figure it out with Elena and T-Bag, and I'll be happy to sign as many as you want. By the way, the armed guard guy who saved the other 20 was Sam Lopresti. Sam Lopresti was also famous for making more saves than any other goalie in an NHL game. 82 against the Bruins before he went into service.
Wow.
yeah. And his son Pete Lopresti played in the NHL too as a goalie.
Minnesota.
All right, we're running out of time, and as always, it's a tradition here. May's going to close the show with a joke, and we'll decide if it's a yay or an nay.
Maeve, do you have one for us?
If you say nay, you can't be invited back.
Yes.
Okay, here's the gag. I love animal gags, and I love shrink gags. So a hippopotamus goes to a shrink, and the shrink says, "Get on the couch and tell me what your trouble is." And the hippopotamus says, "Wait a minute, I'm not going to get on the couch until you tell me how much it costs for one of these visits." So the shrink says to the hippopotamus, "It's $200 a visit and $20,000 for my couch."
So yay.
Yeah.
It was an honor to have you guys.
Thank you so much.
Honor.
It was an honor to be here. No, thank you guys for having us.
Thanks, guys.
Dylan and Ron, really appreciate you coming on the show. To our listeners, make sure to follow, subscribe to Bottle Rocket, and we'll see you on the next one.
Yeah.